This is a stimulus update and daily news report. Got some big updates to share with you. $5,500 checks have been approved in one state, and millions of Americans could see bigger checks in the next few months. The reason why is because the IRS owes interest on any tax refunds that are over 45 days late. I'll give you more details on that, plus what the Transportation Secretary is saying about inflation and what could be done, plus some other important updates as well. Hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. If you appreciate the fact-based, fast-paced updates, hit the like button down below. So inflation hit 8.3% in April compared to last year, showing signs of leveling off. It remains a near 40-year high, but little change from 1 month ago. Could be a positive sign for the price of goods, services, and the broader economy. What are your thoughts on this? So in March, it was 8.5%, and now it's at 8.3%. Have we peaked with inflation? Regardless, that 0.2%, it's not really making much of a difference in terms of price of food, gas, other parts of life that cost really high at this moment. But what are your thoughts on all of that? Take a look at this report giving the perspective from Republicans as well as President Biden and a few other areas of inflation. Take a look at this.
Today's report from the government is expected to show that America's 40-year high inflation has already peaked. The big question now, when will prices start dropping? Analysts predict the report will show an inflation rate of 8.1% last month, a decrease from 8.5% in March. But some economists warn core inflation, which excludes food and gas prices, could stay high for months.
I want every American to know that I'm taking inflation very seriously.
President Biden says fighting inflation is his top domestic priority, but Tuesday suggested things could still get worse.
How long do you think it will be until we see prices coming down?
I'm not going to predict that. Some say it's going to increase next year, but there's others say by the end of this year you're going to see it come down by the calendar year. I don't know.
The president pointed to several steps his administration has taken to lower prices, but blamed pandemic disruptions and the war in Ukraine for rising prices. His critics say inflation also stems from the Biden administration's overspending.
He said today, for example, as you pointed out, that he bears no responsibility whatsoever for inflation. I think most Americans are thinking, right, and Jimmy Hoffa died of natural causes. Also, the stripper really likes you.
Meanwhile, inflation is hammering voters ahead of November's midterm elections, like Adele in California, who recently turned to food assistance with grocery prices up 10% in the last year.
My Social Security is what I live on, and sometimes I don't have enough food by the end of the month.
And Flor Torres in Maryland now working 2 jobs to cover the cost of gas.
I try to budget myself as much as I can. Lately, I've been using the credit cards, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
With the negative economic news piling up, Republicans are poised to take control of Congress in the fall.
We've got the highest gas prices ever. We've got low labor participation. We've got a GDP that's declining. So, he doesn't have any ideas. He was confusing. He put up no ideas what he's going to get done.
And today, President Biden heads to Illinois, where he's expected to announce steps to lower food prices. He's also considering lifting tariffs on Chinese products to lower prices on those goods.
Inflation still really high, although it's kind of going down a little bit, slightly, according to the numbers. People are still feeling it every day. So what is being done about it? So U.S. inflation rate slows but remains close to 40-year high. President Biden gave his speech. If you want to check out my earlier video from today, I showed you what President Biden said exactly about inflation. But what about the Transportation Secretary and what could be done about inflation there? Take a look at this video clip from Pete Buttigieg.
Well, no end in sight for soaring gas prices. The average price of a gallon now well over $4 as the U.S. experiences its worst battle with inflation in decades.
I know the families all across America are hurting because of inflation. I want every American to know that I'm taking inflation very seriously, and it's my top domestic priority.
So we have a lot to discuss with a member of the president's cabinet. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg joins us. Thank you, Secretary. Appreciate you joining us this evening. Good evening to you. So President Biden
Good evening. Good to be with you.
calls inflation his #1 priority. It is at a 40-year high. So what does the administration plan to do about it? And people don't want long-term plans. They don't want to hear about that. They want action now.
Well, the president laid out a number of specific steps, many of them already underway and more to come. And I think that's the most important thing about today's message. Not just that the president's saying it's a priority, but he's making clear what we're doing about it. Some of it is the measures that he's already taken to stabilize or help stabilize global oil markets, which affects gas prices. Some of it's action which he has advanced in Congress to do things like lower the cost of prescription drugs, cap insulin at $35, lower the cost of childcare, internet access, and other measures. Now, some of those have been blocked by congressional Republicans, but other measures are underway and are making a difference. Then you have the supply chain side of things. You know, part of what contributes to upward pressure on prices is high costs of shipping. That's why we're making some of the investments that we're making. Some of them, sure, they're long term, but some of them are steps that are operating in the short term, pushing toward 24/7 operations at our ports, working with truck drivers to get more truck drivers trained and keep them on the road, working with rail companies to try to get their fluidity up. This is an all hands on deck moment, and the president laid out today a very clear contrast between a specific series of steps, policy steps, that he's undertaking and proposing, versus the other side, which loves to criticize on this, but either has no plans or has plans that don't make any sense, like raising taxes on the middle class and the poor, just at the moment when Americans are struggling with these high prices.
Well, listen, I want to ask you, because there's another contributing factor, but just while we're on the subject of gas prices, let me go here first. Gas prices have jumped to a new record high, and if we look at this chart that we have up right now, they've gone way up over just the last 9 months. How high is this going to go? And does the administration have any tools to control what has been really a shock to just about everyone's pocket?
Well, there are some tools. Look, when an oil company is deciding how much to charge for a gallon of gas any given day, of course, they don't call the president to check. But when you have actions like the release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and by the way, the president didn't just do that unilaterally. He did one of the things that he committed to do, which is rally international players, allies, and partners to do the same. That had an effect. Were it not for that, prices would be higher than they are now. But the truth is, as long as we are dependent on these kinds of foreign dictators and the fuel they produce, we're going to continue seeing these issues. That's why long term, we got to make sure we reduce our dependence. Short term, the president's taken actions like making more homegrown biofuels available in the near term. These are things that are going to make a difference, even if, again, we know that obviously the gas price is set by global petroleum markets, not by the president of the United States.
Well, let's talk about the other contributing factors to this this unease with the economy that Americans are having. President Biden is blaming the pandemic and Putin's war for inflation. But what about that $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan? The San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank concluded last year, Secretary, that the stimulus contributed to inflation. Shouldn't at least part of the blame be placed on that?
Look, at that time, the country was facing the continued risk of economic collapse. Action had to be taken to bring back the economy, to make sure that Americans had more money in their pockets, that jobs that would have been lost perhaps forever were saved. Now, it is true, right now, we have a lot of the issues that are associated with those very low unemployment rates. Right now, we have fewer people on unemployment than we've had, I think, since 1970. And when that happens, that does create pressures in labor markets. But if you consider the alternative, the possibility that we could have seen the kind of economic collapse that was a very real risk before the American Rescue Plan, there's no question that that was the right thing to do. It has saved countless jobs, likely millions and millions of jobs, and it's one of the reasons why the job creation record of this president in his first year is one that is the most swift creation of jobs in American history.
Yeah, understood. But did it contribute to inflation, as economists say?
Look, I think that historians and economists will be debating the early 2020s and what happened for many years and decades. But right now, we're still living in that moment. Right now, what we've got to do is focus on the tools that are in our hands that will actually help right now. And whether we're talking about counterbalancing the effects of Putin invading a country, obviously when you have a major oil-producing country go to war, that's going to have effects, or whether we're talking about dealing with supply chain issues that have been driven by the pandemic, there are things that we can do, there are things we are doing, and there's more that we can do. Right now, the president's asking for support on this, and what we see coming out of the other side is certainly a desire to throw punches and offer a lot of criticisms over this, but very little by way of actual plans. I mean, raising taxes on the poor and the middle class, I suppose they could argue that could somehow reduce inflation, but that would be a terrible, terrible way to do it.
What are your thoughts on what Pete Buttigieg said? Is it just a bunch of words? Is action going to finally be taken to help people live a more normal lifestyle as they did a few years ago before all the pandemic, the craziness, the inflation? What are your thoughts on all of that? Next, let's get into some stimulus news. Stimulus check 2022 update as $5,500 cash payments approved in this state. So this is going on in Alaska. Approved yesterday, Alaska Senate approved a state spending package that includes cash payments of $5,500 for Alaskans. The package includes dividends of about $4,200 to residents this year, as well as energy relief checks of $1,300. The package passed 15-5 and was sent to the House, which will decide whether to agree on the Senate version. So that's huge. So $5,500 to Alaskans. What are your thoughts on that? I'm not sure if because they're so isolated that they need more money, or should more states do this type of thing? Let me know your thoughts on all of that. Then stimulus update, why some Americans could see bigger checks in the coming months. So this is interesting here. So millions of Americans requested stimulus checks on their tax returns. The IRS has a backlog of returns that haven't been processed, and the IRS will need to pay interest on unpaid refunds after 45 days have passed. So with all those late refunds coming out, IRS may pay interest. How much is it? Well, under the IRS rules, the agency must process tax returns within 45 days of the time they are filed. If longer than 45 days have passed, the IRS will be required to pay interest to the taxpayer on the refund money they are owed. The interest rate is now 4%, up from 3% previously, because it is tied to the federal funds rate, which has recently increased. So anybody, let me know down in the comments below, anybody have a tax return that is past, or you haven't received it in the past 45 days, you could get 4% interest, which is really interesting and I think necessary. I haven't really heard this spoken much about last year with all the delays, but let me know your thoughts. If it's years delayed, I think they still have a backlog of 2020 tax returns. How much money is that going to be? Let me know your thoughts on all of that. And that is all the news that I have for you today to hopefully brighten your day a bit. Here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Guys, I didn't see you there. Hi guys, this is Belle. This is the tip of the day. So I wanted to tell you something that you should do. Hi guys, what are you doing? Sorry, that's my sister. If you want to do something and you can't find something, you have to do what you want to do and make another something. If you can't do the first one, then go on to the next one, because you have to stay positive and good and have good relationships with some friends, and you should always be good enough. Bye. That's all I wanted to tell you.
Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all of your time and support. It really means a lot to me. So today, a little bit of a nicer day. We're going to go for walks. We're going to go hang out around the neighborhood. The girls are feeling good. We're all good. Hope you are as well. And if you want to check out my latest video on my Wise Buys channel, you could click up here, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Be safe. Thank you for watching.